And we are live. So happy Thursday, everybody. Today we have got the awesome Mr. Chris Young on today's live interview. Chris is kind of taking 20 minutes out of his day to talk to us. He's just finished up in our program, the 1% Blueprint, about a couple of weeks back now, wasn't it, Chris? We were just saying.
Yeah.
So before we jump into that and talk about, from my perspective, Chris's awesome achievements, but I want him to speak, not me. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, Luke. Chris Young. I am an audit partner at a large professional services firm. So work in a highly regulated and high-pressure environment.
And also got a dad, family, and all the rest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, always forget about those. Yeah. That's 4 young children. Yeah, including twins. So
very busy man.
Family life.
Cool. Well, that being said, given you're busy, you've got lots on, let's jump right into this. So probably rewind 8-9 weeks ago now, Chris, you, I think, saw a post maybe of a colleague or someone that you'd worked with talking about their experience having worked with me and us in the program, the 1% and the Blueprint. You then decided to reach out and have a chat. What was going on back then which sort of made you decide, look, I want to have a chat with somebody like me and have a conversation?
Yeah, so I'd seen a few posts from people who you'd worked with, and it had got me thinking a while ago about it, and really about doing something other than continuing with the norm, which was, working long hours and working hours that, sometimes all the hours that there were during the week, and not looking after myself. So using anything other than, or using the excuse of time to do anything other than look after myself and spend time with my wife and the kids. So it was that and seeing some of the results from other people and the posts that sort of made me think wider about it. And certainly, on the exercise point, I hadn't been doing anything really. So I just decided I needed to do something about it. I couldn't, I've tried before getting into exercise and trying to look after myself, and I'd do it for a bit and then it sort of give up after a while.
Yeah, and I think that narrative, what you're saying there, is very common with the gents I work with, but just in general anyway. I think when we've got loads on, we're really busy, work's really intense, it feels like we don't have time, and that's, on the face of it, is true. And then I think modalities and approaches that you might have tried to sort of get yourself fit physically, mentally in shape, you try that, but it's usually at the detriment to other things. And given the fact you're so time poor in the first place, invariably it'll fall over. So it's like a more extreme approach. Then it comes crashing down. It's like, well, I can't seem to do anything about it, and I want to, but I can't see how it's possible. Is that like a fair?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't and I didn't, before I went through the program with you, I didn't really know what I should be doing and trying to get into a morning routine. So I was just, I was getting up and going for a run, but I wasn't seeing any results from it, which was part of it. And that means, or for me, that resulted in just a lack of discipline, I think, in terms of keeping things going.
What would you say then, back then, and we're going to fast forward, I want to talk about the positive stuff, but what was probably your biggest frustration with your current situation, if you can rewind a couple of months into the past?
Just a lack of energy to get on and do something about it. Really, that was frustrating. So my wife had started doing something similar, working with a trainer earlier in the year, and we both said we should do something, but I still put it off for a few months, and so just that lack of discipline to be able to do something.
Yeah, and I think there's interplayed in that is that this, if you're committing or wanting to do things internally and saying you're going to do them to yourself, no one else, but then you don't do them, that in itself can be like a negative feedback loop as well. It's just like, well, I keep saying I'm going to do it, I don't fucking do it. Yeah. Well, let's fast forward like to today, where we are, right now. Having come through the process, we had a good chat, decided we're going to work together. We're like, right, let's go. You've now come through the process. Sitting here today, what would you say your key achievements and successes are, having come through the process with where you sit today?
So I think I've got a lot more energy and drive than I had 12 weeks ago, whenever it was. I've lost a lot of weight. I feel healthy and I feel good about it. I actually had a medical at work a couple of weeks ago, and it's the first one I've actually looked forward to and
awesome.
had some positive results from, which was nice. So yeah, definitely feeling healthier, got more drive and energy, certainly at work and also at home, and got a lot way. I've still got a way to go, I think, on sort of the work, on the balance between work and being at home and looking after myself. But it's certainly got a lot better. But it's something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is the routine that I've got myself into, and the determination I've got and the discipline to keep going with that routine.
Yeah, I think that's the key part. But then also the whole balance piece, like that's for everyone. It's almost like a continual work in progress. It's like I think recognizing that there is something out of whack. Notwithstanding, you've got responsibilities, demands, and things that have to be adhered to. But then within that, I think what we're talking about here, the discipline piece, and we can maybe dig into this a little bit in a second. It's this typical narrative. Well, I'm so busy, I can't do anything. It's like that's not necessarily true. And you'll have times where, because life is always a compromise, you can't have everything you want all the time. Sometimes you will have to compromise maybe the balance piece because work dictates that. But that doesn't have to be the 24/7 norm. And I think it's been able to roll with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's whether it's work or whether it's the kids, there's always something that gets thrown my way, or there will always be things that are thrown my way, and that they will put some of that balance out of whack. But it's about being able to get back to a norm as well when you can, and not using that as an excuse to move away from the routine and the discipline that I've got myself into.
Well, let's talk about that then a little bit. So, that's where we are today. So great discipline, routine, structure, lost a good chunk of change from a bodyweight perspective, balance in a better place. What would you say has helped you achieve that? Like, what have been your key learnings and takeaways having come through a process, being coached, gone through what we've done? What would you think are the key drivers that are helping you achieve that? And then I'll layer an extra question on top is what do you think is going to ensure that, although we're like 4 weeks out now and hopefully will continue, that it's going to be sustainable? So fair few questions in there. So you dig into it.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it at the start. I think seeing some results from that short 8-week period, for me, and it might not be the same for everybody, but for me, it makes a difference to it, because if you can see the results for yourself physically and also the mentally side of things and balance, and you've got a happy family life and a happier wife as a result of it, then that is the bit that gives me the discipline to keep going with it.
Yeah. I suppose it's the fact that you're taking ownership of yourself, your well-being, you're living your life, and the byproduct of you doing that is positive things elsewhere. And so it's like, well, why would you not want to continue doing these things? Because you feel good, you look good, it helps create balance. It's not, and again, I'm putting words in your mouth here, Chris, so I hope you agree or challenge me. But what I don't think it is, it's not like, right, I'm doing a load of mad shit for a few weeks and then I've got a result and then that's told the baby. It's like, no, there's, can you speak to that? Because I think that's an important distinction. Because I think so sometimes, let's say a process like this, a coaching process, there's one lens which is like it's hyper targeted on getting a specific result, and everything is geared around that one specific thing. Now that's okay, but in my mind, what we're talking about here is having balance and equilibrium across your life. If we were just like, right, we're going to lose 12 kilos, that's all we give a fuck about, and that's the only focus, usually that would happen at the detriment to other things. And I think the point here, and it speaks to that thing about being able to come back to things, is that isn't the be all and the end all, right? Which
definitely.
To breathe.
Yeah. And for me, and some of that is around, so there's obviously the exercise and looking after yourself. But then there's all the other stuff that you do around all the coaching and, getting you to think a bit more deeply. And actually some of the stuff that I found the hardest was all the coaching modules that we went through. But those were the ones that actually made me think the most and also keep me thinking about things going forward. And which is why I've then got that discipline to keep going. But it makes you think about the other stuff rather than just this is what I want to do in terms of losing weight or whatever it is.
I think that's like, you could call it in corporate speak, the soft skills or whatever, because there's the practical behavioral stuff, which is the habits, the routine, the structure, around physical activity, boundaries, all that kind of stuff. And that's the doing things. But then I think there also, for all of us in life, needs to be a more self-reflective piece, which is like, well, what's it all about? What's important? And also being able to sort of refer back to yourself and assess what you're doing with I guess, an objective, maybe not critical, but an objective lens. And I think, again, that allows for the consistency, because it's like, am I being slack here, or is that fair? Or actually, I was sick, the kids were sick, and so I didn't do 10 of the things I normally would do. Well, I'll give myself a pass there. That's okay. Actually, I had a few drinks last night and I couldn't be arsed. That's a different kettle of fish. But it's being able to see that and recognise that, not just being stuck in a loop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there are two things that I think you said right very, very early on in the process. One was there's absolutely no problem going out and having a few drinks and, you know, having a hangover the next day, but make sure you don't project that onto your children and your family life the next day, because that's you just being an idiot. And then the other one was what you're saying about discipline eats motivation for breakfast or something like that. That I come back to that quite a lot, just to keep me going.
Yeah, and I think the discipline in its most simple is committing to doing something and doing it no matter what, whether you feel shit or not, whatever else. And exactly. That sounds easy, but that's difficult. But I think the layer underneath that is, if you're just trying to brute force things in your life that you know you need to do or want to do, you can try and rely on motivation or discipline to do that. But then if everything else isn't set up or serving you in such a way, it's going to make it really hard to apply discipline. It's going to be really hard to do that. So if 9 times out of 10, whatever it is you're trying to do, be more present, exercise, eat mindfully, get balanced, set a boundary around work, if everything else in your life is geared up to manage stress, make you feel good, it makes you doing that thing much easier. So then you can build the mental muscle of doing it with the ease there. Then the one day when it's all pear-shaped, well, because you've done it easily most of the time, you can rely on the discipline because you always do it. If everything's a shit show and you're trying to apply discipline, then it just makes it much harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if there was one thing, and I think I was saying this is multifaceted, what was ask another question. What do you think was the most surprising part of the whole process?
So
I put you on the spot there a bit, Chris.
Yeah. I think for me, some of the softer skill stuff meditation and stuff like that, that I never thought would be something, or I never really understood why it would be something helpful. But it's all those things and so I guess it's the small things that you can do that make such a big difference around meditation, and leaving your not being on your phone all the time. So I think it's the fact that it's small things that can make such a big difference if you put them together.
Yeah, and that's the little 1%, right? It's and I think we don't, and I think this is just a human condition. I think we think like big problem, big solution, and you need to just do huge big things. And actually, really, if you look at your life, you're the sum product to your daily actions, habits, behavior, choices. It's the little things all added up en masse. And in the moment, one little thing doesn't seem like a lot, but cumulatively, and a few of those together have quite a big, positive impact. And the result is, you sitting where you are today. And I think we often don't give those small things enough time and enough credit to see the results that you get. But even in a relatively short space of time, because 8 weeks isn't that long, really, you can see the cumulative impact that can have. So if there was one thing that was like a key takeaway from the process, what would you say it was?
From somebody going through the process?
Yeah.
I think it's just engage with absolutely everything. I think to make the most out of it and really develop yourself, and get into a position where you can keep going with things after the process. You've just got to get on with it, and there's no excuses, right? And you have coaching calls and stuff like that, and you can ask questions, and there's a bit of peer pressure, but at the end of the day, you've just got to immerse yourself in it and really take on board the different activities that are involved.
I think that's what speaks to you as well, Chris, when you said some of those other things, like we call it soft skill. I use the word woo-woo, but my allowed to say that anymore because it values it, and it's true because it isn't really. But I think, some of those elements you might have been, I'm not sure about that, but you give it a go, and you go, oh, bloody hell, this has quite a positive impact, and it helps. And so I think being engaged and committed to a process, right, is that's it. I think ultimately, if you want to change, it's about investing in that yourself. Right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And the point of having a coach is to help you understand and see why, and when things go wrong, we understand. It's not just about beating you with a stick and saying, you fucked up, do it again better next time. It's like, well, actually, what went wrong and how can we tweak it? But again, at that point, it's like, well, that's where the rubber hits the road, and you've got to want to own that. But for me, that's the beauty of it, and that comes back to the right bit about the discipline bit. It's like, well, if you're undisciplined and you don't have the routine and structure, that's all your fault. But
definitely.
You are the problem. But then the flip of that is you're 100% the solution if you want to be, and that's the power of this, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
So I know you're busy, so I won't take up any more of your time, Chris. So thank you. I think this has been a really, really great conversation, really helpful for anyone watching. If anyone is watching this, let's say they're maybe in a similar situation to you were a few weeks back, not feeling the best, but maybe not engaged with the coach before, not sure about reaching out for help, what would you say to someone who's kind of in your shoes a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I think I put it in my LinkedIn post. It's not easy to realize that you've got to reach out and that you might need some help, and sometimes you can't deal with these things yourself. You do need some help to as you say, the solution's within you, but it's working out how you get to that solution. So yeah, I mean, it's been game changing for me, I think would be the awesome way to put it.
Thank you. And like I said to you before, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I think you embraced everything in the process, and the results speak for themselves. Like you are today, lost a good chunk, 12 kilos or something, which I know that wasn't even really your burning bridge. I mean, you wanted to change it, but there was other things going on. But what I love about that is that's happened as a byproduct of us all this other good stuff that we're talking about. And so, the result is where we are. And I know, let's say we plan to call like this in another 6 months, a year, I guarantee you'd be sitting here in the same situation feeling great because you've got this and you've embedded it. And once you're conscious of all of this, you can't suddenly switch it off, right? And that's
no, definitely not.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'll let you get off now because I know you're busy.
All right.
If anyone's watching this and they're potentially interested in having a chat, they may be feeling like Chris was back then, you're interested in just exploring, what we do in the 1% a bit more, drop me a note in the comments or send me a DM and we can arrange a chat. Other than that, thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure having a chat, and everyone have a great Thursday. Take care. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.